Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, March 27th.
No.
Right?
Wow.
Man.
No.
That's unbelievable. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, March 24th, 2020.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen, sheltering in place.
Social distancing ourselves here from each other. And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And one thing I wanted to bring in real quick is the concept of social distancing and like the whole thing of practice social distancing. I've been practicing my whole life, so I'm really good at it. I just wanted to let you guys know that if you guys need any tips on how to not be around people and how to enjoy your time alone, I'm like the best at that.
I don't need any tips. It's been involuntary and mostly having to do with women, with me.
But what if those people are trying to message you on Hockey Buzz? There's like 26,000 messages. You distance from that too.
I do. I social distance for everything.
Well, I got a beef that I have really stayed indoors during all this. I mean, I'm really paying attention to this whole concept that I don't want to get the virus. Right. And I've only been out one time to a store, and my wife was in Chicago with my family there helping out. They were moving. And so she came back and we wanted to go to the grocery store, and I said, well, I'll go with you. And we went to a big Aldi's by our house. And I had been to the store one other time. And when I did, I was pleased that people were respecting each other. Like if if one person was in the frozen food, the other person waited until they were, shut the door and moved away, and then she went in. She didn't come next to them and open the door next to them and stand there. But in all these, it was a free for all. And I get that all these are a little bit smaller and a little bit crowded, but I was really appalled that people were, in my mind, disrespectful to the whole process.
Yeah, there's a lot of craziness going on, and
well, at the supermarket near me, what they've done is, especially like lining up when you're checking out, they've put a piece of tape to mark 6 feet, so that distance in between the person putting their stuff on the conveyor belt and the next person, and they're not respecting. They have signs saying that's what you do, and the person after they put their stuff on, they're just doing what they normally do and walking right up to the girl who's checking you out. And I'm like, idiot, that's what the tape is for. You stay back there and then you move forward to pay. You don't stay.
I'll tell you who's handling it best is my local Pet Value. They are making you wait outside. They're only taking 2 people inside at a time, and you're basically talking to the people working there, and they're getting their stuff for you. So that's the best. But they can't do that in a supermarket.
No, they can't. Yeah.
What I do like about Aldi is I could go in with a couple of bags, not have to worry about a wagon because they have that stupid wagon policy. Because the wagon's going to give you more virus than anything you touch in Aldi. And I don't even go near a wagon. I just go in, I fill bags, I go to the register, and I leave. And if there are people online, I stay behind them. And I've only had to do it once so far. I'll probably go again this week. So
I'm the same way.
Last thing, the hoarding has gotten less frequent now. It's finally starting to dissipate, but you still do see people. I don't get the toilet paper run. That's one thing, but like items like peanut butter.
It's just human nature, Mike.
I haven't seen a thing of peanut butter in 3 weeks.
I have peanut butter in our closet that has been here since the last house we lived in.
I know. I've got. Well, no.
I mean, but to me, what you're really seeing when you walk through the market is you're seeing like what food no one wants. You're seeing like you're walking along and it's like like my wife eats these Annie's lasagnas and stuff like that. They're they're organic and all that stuff. And there's like one kind that no one wants, and everyone else, everything else. So it's a good way of learning.
Somebody took a picture of pineapple pizza the other day, and they were loaded with pineapple pizza, and all the rest of the pizza was gone.
Well, the ignorance of some people does show, because you go to the beer section, and Corona beer is loaded up, and a lot of when it gets to something like this, people will buy tons of beer and alcohol. That's essential services apparently. But Corona is in big supply, and also Chinese food, like even frozen Chinese food, like P.F. Chang's or like store brands, so egg rolls, fried rice. everything else is almost gone. That stuff, and that's just ignorance.
That's just
Well, our Chinese food places are not even open right now.
Yeah, that's crazy. Up in Pennsylvania was the same thing, but I have like 3 here, and they're still delivering, and I'm going to keep them in business.
Yeah, we don't even have them delivering. I
Wow.
would buy the one we always use, which is less than a mile from my house, and it's completely closed.
That's
Wow.
man.
We've started to hoard again because we just went. The governor just ordered us. Now it's $500 misdemeanor fine if you're traveling to some place that you don't need to go to. In other words, you need to go to the grocery store or the doctor, or
Right,
there's a list of 8 or 10 places. And if you're going anywhere other than that, then you're subject to a $500 fine. So yesterday in the Myers, I wasn't there, but all over the local Facebook, there's pictures of just aisles that are just completely empty. No bread, frozen foods, just non-existent, that kind of thing.
Well, one thing that hasn't slowed down is the signings of college free.
Nicely done, Mike. Nicely done. I want to say, very nice, very smooth.
Yeah.
Transition. Beautifully done.
Yes.
All right.
Some teams aren't socially distancing themselves from college players. That's for sure.
So
It was a great segue, but it's actually not true. Actually, I actually think there's less discussion about college free agents than we normally see at this
it's a
time.
hot topic right now on Twitter, at least. I'll say this. So the last one that I heard was Mitchell Chappie. He's from UMass. He signed with Minnesota. He was a top liner for UMass, and I think he's a good player. Can I name you one discerning thing that I think is great about him that I think would make him great at the next level? No. So I think he's a guy that can be a depth guy for Minnesota and can play once in a while. I don't know if he's a regular NHLer. Like, as an example, Luke Cunning came out of college. He was a star, and he's still developing. Now, I think last year, or this year rather, he was having a pretty good year. But there's a big difference between a guy like Luke Cunning and Mitchell Chappie. So I think this is a good safe signing by Minnesota. It fills the system, which I think that's something that Guerin needs to do. But I also think GMs right now are looking for some positive press.
Right.
And if you can get a kid signed, now you can put out a press release too.
Well, the interesting thing, and Kevin's right, it's not as frequent as it was, say, this time last year, but it still is happening. But the interesting thing that I heard on a podcast, and it does, I think it reflects the business not being as brisk, is the fact that a lot of these college free agents, as we know, with guys like, say, Cale Makar or other more prominent free, and he was a draft pick, I'm just saying, but players that were coming out of college, getting that first year of the contract in the current year,
Right.
is always the motivation to have them burn a year, get to restricted free agency quicker. And some of these college free agents, they don't have that available to them. So some of them are sort of holding back, waiting to see what the deadline is for college free agents, which may move from, I think it was June the 1st. It may move forward. So that's
many are holding back, but also
that's what I've heard. There's less urgency with some players. They're just going to wait and see what happens.
But also, I think they used to look for the opportunity, but now that things are a bit more uncertain, now you're seeing more players go back to the teams that originally drafted them too. Sort of now with David Cotton, here's the interesting one with Carolina. I think he was the best one that could leave college that's out there. And, other than Cole Caulfield maybe, but, this year he wasn't going to leave. He said he wasn't. So that's why I don't put him in the list. And Miller, I don't think is as ready for the NHL as someone like David Cotton. So it doesn't mean I think Cotton's better than Miller in his career. It just means I think he's better right this moment where he might be able to step into a third or fourth line role and do something. David Cotton can be like a force of nature in games, and down low, he's strong. He knows how to cycle, work the puck. He's a good skater. But when he's near the net, he scores. And that translates in every league if you're tough enough, if you're strong enough. And he can do that. Now, his brother Jason is also like a big kid. He's 6'3". He's actually, I think, an inch or two bigger. But the thing is, he's not as physical, not as good a skater. He's an okay skater. And I'd be surprised if he doesn't play more than just a few NHL games. And I think what Carolina did here was, hey, we'll sign the both of you if you sign now.
Right.
Because David Cotton is a guy that really could have called his shot with a lot of teams. But the fact that he was able to get his brother signed, that was a smart move by Don Waddell, and I've got to give them credit for that because there's only 3 contracts that a college player can get.
Right.
And so there's not that much maneuverability, but that's something where that's thinking outside the box.
And it was only a 1-year deal. So
Right.
if that's the price you have to pay to get a highly regarded prospect under an entry-level deal, then you do it.
Right.
There is a guy, he's not a free agent, but he was a draft pick that I'm totally excited about who has signed and come out of college. I bet Russ can guess who it is. Who's the one guy that you think could be next season the best guy that's been signed thus far? College guy.
That's a total free agent.
Pardon me?
That's a total free agent?
Oh, no, he's not a free agent. He's been drafted.
Well, I like Lisinski a lot. I just talked about Cotton.
Yeah, I think it's Turcotte.
Turcotte already signed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think he's going
Of the guys that signed, he's the guy that I'm most excited about.
He's got the highest ceiling.
I just think he is just a really good hockey player. Like, always we talk in terms of offensive potential, but I think he just does everything. I think he's a Bergeron type of player who can skate with any of the big time skaters. And I think he's very, very smart. He's got obviously good DNA.
Right.
And I think he's going to be, and I think next year we'll be talking about this kid and the impact he's making.
No, we will. I think on that team he probably starts off as a third line center, but I think in time he ends up as a second, maybe a first line center, but not right away because they've got Kopitar, they've got guys, so he'll have to work his way up. But yeah, see, I already excluded him because he signed already, and I was thinking of guys who were going to sign. But I love Turcotte. I liked him better than any of the other centers in that draft. So
I mean, just one thing. One thing that I observed, because I'm the one who keeps the Cap Central for Hockey Buzz up to date, so I'm always putting in the contracts that are being signed, and obviously most of them are college free agents. Some of them are draft picks that from a couple of years ago, where the time frame is growing close that they could go back into the draft or become free agents. But there's only been a few. Like renegotiations of or extensions of players that are already under contract, like Zach Whitecloud for Vegas, Connor Ingram for Nashville. And the thing that I've noticed, the trend that I've noticed, all these contracts are under $1 million, and it's I think that obviously the uncertainty of what's going to happen going forward in terms of salary cap, in terms of revenue. I mean, that is predominant on the minds of a lot of these general managers. And I know that, and we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when the league is going to resume, but there's talk about 30 to 35% escrow on some on contracts for next year based on when the league gets back, if the league plays the season or the playoffs. And we know how these players hate escrow as it is at 10, 12, 14%. What is it going to be like if it's 1/3 of their contract, because there's the uncertainty of what the revenue is going to be like in this league?
I will say this too. My initial guess on what the NHL would lose if they had to cancel the season was way under what they're now saying it's going to be. Like I just assumed since we were near the end of the regular season that it wouldn't be as great. And obviously I knew how much they count on the revenue of the playoffs in terms of gate revenue, but now they're predicting it'll be over $1 billion. So now we're talking, 20-25%, so that's going to be significant.
Well, here's the other part, and then I'll get to a couple more free agents. The other part that I always sort of bristle at when fans are just instantly siding with the players is, hold on. I mean, the players got 75% of their pay this year, or whatever it is, minus the escrow. The owners don't pay them in the playoffs. That is when they're looking for their profit, and now that's gone unless something happens and we do have a season. So right now the players have gotten a lot of their money, where the owners haven't.
They haven't, right? And that I mean,
that's a fair point.
Escrow is going to be it's a reality. I mean, people freak out about it all the time, but it's just a reality about how this thing works. Like it's not there has to be some way of knowing what's going on. Like there has to be some kind of failsafe in there.
Sure.
I think it's overblown. I really think it's over.
There is no fail-safe. I mean,
it's the psychology of it. I mean, you're really not losing money. It's part of your contract. It's no different than we all pay escrow on our mortgage to assure that that everything's paid properly. Well, that's all players are doing.
Yeah,
they're giving money back and make sure that it really is a 50-50 split. So,
and why are they so nuts about this? Like, why?
Well, I mean, I think what their argument would be, if the owners would just pay attention and not overspend, then we wouldn't be in this predicament.
Well, and
we know that argument's not going to go very far. That's like
that's
the problem.
That's the other thing. Now, we're assuming, even, and maybe some people aren't, but we're assuming that even if there is a loss of, say, 20% of the revenue based on the playoffs not happening or nobody being in the stands because the playoffs will happen in July and August and they won't be able to have thousands of fans in the stands, that the salary cap.
I don't believe that, by the way. But
yeah, I hope it's not the case. But
I think fans will come. I
would hope so. But the thing is that the hope is that the absolute worst assumption is that the salary cap will remain the same. At least they'll stay at whatever 81.5. What happens if they say the cap is lowered to 75 million?
Then you'll have to make trades.
Yep.
Well, the thing is, I don't think there's enough available cap space to accommodate moving other players to other teams. You may have to have compliance buyouts to clear space.
Well, yeah, of course you would.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's not a big deal. I mean, we've gone through it before.
Right.
There would be an agreement. They'd get together, the PA, and figure out what they need to do, and they'll do it. I think everybody just assumes that's what'll happen.
Yeah, I've got two more players. I always did sign Tanner Lasinski at Ohio State. Now, that's a guy who I've seen the last couple of years in tournament play, and I've seen him in live and been very impressed with him. He's strong. That team has not always been the strongest offensively, so he's always had to carry the load on every shift, doing everything. So I felt like the last 2 years he's been playing close to an NHL level because he's had to. Like, he hasn't had anybody to really bail him out. He's had some talent with him, but not a tremendous amount. So, and especially this year. This year he lost players and still went back. And so the question will be whether he plays center or wing. I still think he could play center. I thought that when he got drafted. He's good on faceoffs. He's strong. He's another guy. His shooting accuracy is really good, and he doesn't have to always be around the net. Like, he's got a tremendous wrist shot. I think he, at 200-something pounds, I think he will fit in right away, and I think he will have a chance to make the team next year. Now, whether they start him there or not, that'll all depend on Fletcher and the contracts. But if we're talking about teams having to dump players, guys like Lasinski will get a chance. And that's, another reason why I think we're seeing some of these guys getting locked up now. Another one, the last one, is Connor McKay. He's one that Calgary locked up. He's from Minnesota, Mankato. And I hadn't seen them live, but I've seen him play in the USHL. But I sat one day for lunch with Mike Hastings, who's the coach. And we were talking about McKay and how he was in the USHL, how he moved up. And boy, he just told me some glowing stuff. And I went back and I remember having to reassess this guy, because I never take for face value if somebody, touts their own player, because everybody wants to tout their own players. But if somebody gives me some things that I didn't realize, I'm going to go back and check. And I did. And I think this guy has all the tools. Like, he's 6'2", he's 183, he's got a good shot, he's a mobile offensive defenseman. If you think about the Calgary Flames right now, and that sounds like a bottom pairing guy for them, whether it's this year, this next coming year, or half season, or the year after. But with the way their situation's going, with the guys like Stone, who were just signed to 1-year deals, and injuries that have occurred, there's opportunity for that guy. So I thought that was one of the better signings. That's it.
No, I like it a lot. That sounds like a really. I mean, I can't wait to see these guys. I love to see the impact college players are making year after year right now. It's just getting more and more interesting all the time.
Yep.
And it's really fun to see.
Not all of them pan out.
They don't all pan out, but they all bring like a different a different kind of level. I mean, I still think there is something to the college game with they get to practice more than they get to practice in juniors.
They get to work out a lot. They work out.
Yeah, and they don't play as many
4 days a week in the weight room.
They don't play as many.
Well,
games.
they show up older.
Yeah,
in
right.
the NFL, and I think it's really increased the depth. Like we've seen that in the last few, dating back to the back-to-back titles that the Penguins won, where they had college free agents that stepped in and helped them, and you started to see more teams figuring, well, that's how we can improve our depth.
Yeah,
what happened is everyone said to their pro scouts, go out and find the fastest guys in college hockey.
Well, I'll give Rutherford great marks because with the John Marino case, I did some digging on that, and he basically told Edmonton, hey, I'm not going to sign with you. And Edmonton literally had 48 hours to trade him. That's it. If they didn't trade him in 48 hours, they'd lose his rights.
Right.
And so for all we know, Rutherford was the first call saying, hey, I'll give you a conditional sixth. And Edmonton took it because they were, pretty desperate.
Yeah.
And they got a heck of a player. Like I watched that guy at Harvard and I knew he could play. Now, I didn't imagine he would have the offense that he's having this year. But again, you can't imagine it because nobody on Harvard can play like anybody with the Penguins. And a lot of times when you put these guys with better players around them, you will see better results. And so that's one where I give Rutherford a lot of credit because he probably was tracking that guy, or somebody in the organization was tracking that guy. They probably got wind, hey, we don't think he's going to sign with them. Right. Call to Edmonton, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you know what? We got to move him. Let's do it.
If you were a college player, I'm not sure if once you go beyond your sophomore season, why you wouldn't just play it out and then be a free agent. Like I've never,
it all depends how good you are, Kev. And because if you're a middle of the road guy, then you're hoping that franchise signs you that did it.
If that's the case, they usually are going to sign you after your sophomore season.
Not as much anymore now. I mean, most of the time, yes, but I think lately there have been some guys that have been slipping, and it used to be like, hey, like a guy like Lisinski, he would never sign with the Flyers. But you know what? Now there have been some guys that didn't go to August. And so I don't know how robust August is going to be this year with all the uncertainty. I think these guys actually this year wanted, a certain amount of them wanted to get locked up because we don't even know when the season will start for next season and how this one's going to end. So I have a feeling the advisors are probably saying, if you've got a deal out there, you know what? You better take the deal and worry about the rest later. So I think there's been a little shift there.
That could be.
Yeah, I think right now it's definitely if someone's going to sign you to any contract and anything you possibly do in this economy, you should probably take. I mean, no matter what it is out there, I think these guys are. I mean, there's no question they're nervous about where they're going to end up. I'm living right now with my daughter, who in the next 2 weeks is going to find out what college she's going to. And it's like that stress, that uncertainty. We've had a couple colleges have accepted her, a couple haven't, a couple she's waiting on. It's like that uncertainty does make your world crazy. It
does. And speaking of that, 1 second on the Olympics. So I was listening to an interview on ESPN with Lolo Jones, and she pointed out how the last month has really been hell for Olympic athletes because with no word really coming in from the IOC and all the social distancing starting to come into play and places closing, a lot of Olympic athletes, their training has been awful for the last month and a half.
Of course.
And we take it for granted, right? We're like, well, they'll just work out at home or whatever. But
they're fine-tuned machines, these guys.
Yeah, these are specialized athletes that do certain things every day, have a routine and everything else. And so apparently the IOC waiting this long did a real disservice to the athletes. So it's good that they put it off for a year. I know it's good that they put it off for a year, but the problem is, like someone like Lolo Jones, who's 28, doesn't even know if she'll be able to compete next year in the hurdles because for somebody who's going to be 29, that's really hard to do. And so we're going to probably lose some athletes, but that's the way it goes.
So,
go ahead, Kev.
Well, I was just curious because I didn't hear that. So she was upset that they didn't make a decision, and now she's upset that they're delaying it a year because she won't be able to.
No, she was okay with the delay. She wanted them to delay it sooner, even if that meant she never comes back.
Right.
Okay. All right. I was trying to figure that out.
No.
Really not.
She wasn't going to be able to compete, but she was upset that they waited to delay it. So
and apparently, like her routine for getting ready for the Olympics was interrupted because one of her coaches is elderly, and obviously with social distancing,
they
couldn't.
Well, every hockey player is going through that now. Like I've been talking to a couple of GMs who said, everybody's in contact with their players, but the problem is, a lot of them have some workout equipment in their homes, but they don't have a gym. There's no ice,
Right?
and everyone's concerned about the level of conditioning. Like guys are doing what they can, in their backyards, and
There's no rink open.
There's nowhere to go.
It's kind of amazing that more players don't have like little indoor ice facilities.
Yeah, like the synthetic ice, or even
or not synthetic ice, but even just like, I mean, if you're making that kind of money and your kids are probably playing hockey, like if I was that, I would have, I have a rink outside here. If that's my actual job all the time, I would cover it up, and it's a rink. It might be a fox habitat.
It's a wolf lair.
It's a rink, even though it's a fox and star-nosed mole habitat right now. But besides that, if I was a real person like playing hockey, I would definitely have that. I would have that.
That's a fair point, but
a lot of younger players don't even have single-family homes.
Not younger players.
No, but here's a good thing, Kev. A friend of mine said, "Well, what do I do for my kid?" I said, "Get some synthetic ice," and it turns out like it would be like $2,500. But for a hockey player, that's a drop in a bucket. And if I want to keep skating, I could drop that on my patio and start skating. Now, some people said it's kind of tough on your blades. So my answer is then use your secondary cars.
I have synthetic ice on my rink, and I can tell you this, like it is hard on your blades, but it's not that bad. You can, if you just get yourself like a little cheap, sharpener that you can hand sharpen, you're fine. And it really does make sense because it's outside, so you don't have to worry about germs. I know that Michel Petit has a small rink near me here that I think I've seen people in the parking lot all the time. It's like a 3-on-3 rink, and I'm pretty sure there's guys over there playing and practicing.
Just connected to what you were talking about, Kev, because the Q&A that the NHL put out on the website yesterday, they addressed the want of some players to basically have access to training facilities. And everything right now, with the exception of in that Q&A, everything except the answer of are they going to play an 82-game season next year? They said definitively, yes, we're going to play 82 games. Everything was we'll wait and see. Everything is on hold right now because they don't know.
Well, they don't know. And, even in the last 24 hours, it seems like we have a switch where you're starting to hear the first levels of rebellion from people that says, we want to go and just live our lives and let the consequences be damned. Lieutenant Governor from Texas who said, we want to stop being held hostage by this. And then what Donald Trump, the president, said. And so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 2 weeks.
It's moving quickly.
Can I just ask one more thing? The announcement of the Olympics. I know that the Olympics being postponed. I know that Elliot Friedman and Pierre LeBrun both over the last week had talked about a playoff scenario in August and September. And now they think with the cancellation of the Olympics, and the Olympics sort of run from July 24th to I think the second week in August. Yeah. In a way, that clears the way, at least in terms of broadcasting situations with NBC or TSN or CBC.
Sure helps.
It clears the way for a later summer playoff if the NHL decides that. What have you heard? Have you heard anything regarding that, Kev, with the sources?
No, the only thing I've heard from again talking to a couple of GMs is that everybody's saying, look, we got to wait and see how this plays out. Like they don't want, and what they're really, one of the reasons why they do it, they don't want to just start in the background talking about when they're going to play and then suddenly have 1,000 people die over the next 2 days and stuff. So I mean, they've been resistant of not doing even any formal, planning. So, I mean, we all know they're committed to playing if it is all humanly possible. I think Gary Bettman has said a couple of times that, he really would like to award the cup this season. And they're going to try to do it. I'm still doubtful though. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the tide is turning and,
I still have hope. I mean, it doesn't mean it's legitimate, but I have hope.
And the funny thing, there's really no reason to be hopeful or doubtful. Like, to be honest, it's like you're really just going off your gut, like you're just going. Yeah. I mean, because we have no idea how this is going to play.
No, well, we shouldn't. Anybody who says, that they know is lying because the people that matter haven't really kind of decided. But
I mean,
I'll tell you the one
I
thing.
actually want to commend the NHL on putting out and letting it get out there at least that this plan exists, because I think that in a way, like, the hockey fans do need some kind of hope to hang on to. Like, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. That's fine. We all know that the circumstance is crazy, but it's not the worst thing in the world for hockey fans to lose out there and say we could be, I mean, I'm thinking about, I have a beach house. I'd love to go there at some point, and this summer would be a lot of fun, like to have like the playoffs going on in July and August. It would be a blast. I think it would be a great time. And can you imagine the bars down there? They would be it would be fun. I mean, it really would be a fun thing.
Whereas you haven't heard any kind of optimistic, forward-looking talk from the NBA, not at all.
No.
Well, they have a lot more players.
I'm going to say this, and it's going to create a firestorm, but it seems true to me. I could be totally wrong, but does not the NBA appear to be more socially conscious than the NHL? I mean, it feels that way. Like on all the issues,
they're more.
We always hear the players and particularly coaches in the NBA commenting and showing their feelings and all that. We rarely hear that from the NHL. You don't even really know what their opinions are.
Yeah,
I do agree, and I do think that the way it all went down with the NBA made a big impact on the NBA. Like, I think that if it had gone down the same way with the NHL, like a player, like they have players and people in the seats, players found out to have it, and they have to cancel a game before it starts. That definitely impacted the NBA and made it.
Yeah, but that fits into the sort of the personality of the sport. Right. I guess that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it as criticism. I'm just saying the NHL players don't wear their opinions as much on their sleeves.
I will say this.
Right, you're right. You're very right about that, and that goes all the way up the chain, like
all the way to the top. Gary Bettman is not. He's much more buttoned up. He wants to see things like he's not a guy that makes an instant decision. Yeah, he's going to go to the board of governors and he's going to look at it. And
I mean, more videos this week of players than I've seen in the past.
Yeah,
and so I think teams are trying to get these guys to still connect. But I will say this: the craziest thing about this whole thing is, I remember seeing one person say this online, and I thought about it. If we all would have just a couple months ago just read the line in the history book that says, hey, in 19 whatever, the NHL lost the season to the flu, we would be like, yeah, that'll never happen again. But it still could happen again.
Well, here's the thing too, that that why it just feels so doubtful to me. And again, I don't really know, but but you go on Facebook, and I don't know how many of you have friends who are physicians, but I have two. Yeah. And what I read from them is they're in different hospitals and both in Michigan, is that their hospitals are being overrun.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to just think, we're being overrun in our hospitals, and we know that it's going to get worse, that suddenly in 2 months we're going to be playing hockey. Like, it's
hard. It's more in New York City.
A dentist, but there's a typical of my wife's, the Jewish family thing that they have, like a good friend who's a doctor, a good friend who's a podiatrist, a good friend. They all have, everybody's there. So I've heard all this stuff about this, and he's Facebook crazy and sends me stuff all the time. And the big thing that the doctors I trust are saying is that, we are getting inundated right now, because there's no question about it, right? There's a 2 weeks gestation thing on this thing, right? So you have to go back. We've really been in lockdown now for about a week and a half, serious lockdown, about a week and a half to like almost 2 weeks, right? So when you think about that, and there's a 2 week period where this thing someone can get it from somebody else, this would be the time that we would be getting hit the most, because this is before people who got it right now are the ones who got it before the whole lockdown was intense. Now that the lockdown's relatively intense, we'll see what happens, and even this, I think it'll, even this week, which was less intense. Now, like you say in Michigan, now they're fining you $500 for leaving your house, that kind of stuff. If that goes, that should technically take out the new cases. It really should.
I can tell you this, I know somebody working in hospitals every day in New York. It's grim or grimmer than you think.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
It's like, they're wearing masks for 7 hours straight, the same mask now.
It's horrendous. I mean, it's what's happening, the unpreparedness. I mean, the political aspects of all.
I know, but I'm not even going there. What I'm saying is, I can't imagine when the season starts, and I think there's a chance it does, that they'll be able to play in Manhattan. I don't think they'll be able to play there.
Yeah, there are certain places like that where people are so close together already.
Well, Dolan offered MSG basically as a hospital.
Right, and I think that's what's going to happen to MSG. I don't think they're going to be able to play hockey there.
Well, they turned it down in favor of the Javits Center,
Right.
but you know,
I think you will see the major population areas like LA, New York, Chicago. Those places are going to take a lot longer to recover than like the Michigans and Pennsylvania, like the middle of nowhere places like us.
And I wonder too, like, what will be the, how would they do this? Well, they have to test everyone in the league, and make sure everybody's.
I think at that camp they need to test everybody
negative, and then, but as soon as anyone tests positive, then you got to retest everybody on the team, because you can't have it, competing. And, we know what happens when the flu. So I just think it's just going to be so hard for them to figure out.
I talked to somebody at the Flyers, and this is what they said. One of the things that they had talked about, and this is, I'm sure I'm not talking out of school here because it's just a concept, but they said, exactly what you're saying, Kevin. They would test all the players, make sure all the players and all the people surrounding the team are indeed negative. At that point, once you do that, the second you do that, you then have to quarantine the team together.
Right.
And so you'd have to put them in a hotel in Philly, for example, for the rest of for a while, because you have to keep them, because they can't go to their wives, their kids or whatever, because that's immediately you'd have to test every day. So once you quarantine them all together, then you could potentially play in front of empty seats for a bit,
Well, I mean, that was addressed. That was addressed yesterday. Actually, the league is not in favor of a league mandated coronavirus test, because testing is not readily available right now. And then they said the only people that they're really in favor of testing are people who are symptomatic.
The testing right now makes no sense. I mean, we're talking a month from now, Mike. I'm talking like a month from now.
He's going to probably change that, Mike. I agree with that.
There will be more tests.
Right. Yeah, I think we're talking up the road, Mike, not.
Sure.
Yeah, right now.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I hope you are all right. I'm down that I just don't see we're going to have any sports, but I really hope that if you're hopeful, I hope you're right, not me. So.
Well, I mean, like I say, there's no reason that any of us can legitimately be hopeful or not hopeful right now, because we're in such uncharted territory. It does. So, I mean, to me, if that's the case, I'm going to try to look on the bright side of life a little bit and see what we can do here. But you and Kevin and Mike, you guys can be as negative as you want.
No, being an
Kevin, you're in Mike's world now, and I'm just kidding.
That's right.
Yeah, if you're negative, I'm with you. I mean, I'm negative in terms of it just doesn't feel like we're going to play.
It doesn't feel like we're going to play. I agree with you.
But that doesn't mean that like I said, that's not based on anything other than seeing what's happening in the world out here and just guessing. So,
but losing $1 billion is losing $1 billion. I mean, that's the thing. So if there is a way, they're going to do it. I think they'll push the other season back a little bit further too. I don't think.
I'm going to tell you my all-time favorite quote from the former Kings owner, Bruce McNall, who once, and I actually quoted him in USA Today, he said, $1 million here, $1 million there, pretty soon you're talking about real money.
Yeah. That's the truth.
Did he say that before he went to jail or after?
That was actually before.
Okay, I was going to say, did he say that before he bought the Honus Wagner?
Trimmed card, yeah.
Trimmed card, yes.
I heard this quote the other day. How many maybes does it take to make a probably? I like that quote. Like, if you have 25 maybes, is that probably?
Yeah, maybe.
Right, exactly.
Well, I'll bring it back to shopping. It's like all different items are in the local supermarkets are limit 2 per item, but there's no items on the shelf. So what's 2 of nothing?
Yeah. I'll tell you my little secret, guys. If you want to go someplace for food, at least in Pennsylvania, the best place to go, the least crowded place, and the place that has the most stuff is Target, which you wouldn't necessarily think of, but because Target has they have food in Target, and people aren't really necessarily thinking to go there, but they have all the basics that you would need. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk hockey about the Detroit Red Wings all-time team. Something I think I've done with Kevin 1,000 times. I'm sorry, Kevin, for doing it again, but we're in the process of this. I'm doing this thing on here and having a lot of fun, getting huge readership, huge viewership. And so we've been putting together the top 12 forwards, top 6 defense, and top 2 goalies. And we thought we would do Detroit. And the first question I have for you about Detroit, having been a not a lifer, but a long-time Michigonian, no, mostly lifer. been out of there just only a little bit part of your life. Is it safe to say the Detroit Red Wings, because I'm doing rivalries. So if I'm going to do a rivalry, it's Chicago, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the near rival. I mean, there was a period where really the Colorado Avalanche, as we all know, was their number one rivalry. And I would say that because the proximity to Canada, I would say there are a lot of people who live right across the border that believe it's the Maple Leafs.
Right.
Okay.
The Red Wings. So I think if you did a poll, you would probably get more Maple Leafs and Avalanche combined than you would get Chicago. But people just sometimes just say Chicago because.
Well,
let's do a poll. I'm going to do a poll on Twitter right now.
What's killed that rivalry? Just like the Leafs haven't played the Canadiens since 1979 in the playoffs. That there's still the traditional historical rival, but still not facing each other in 41 years hurts it. Other than 93, I believe the last time the Red Wings and the Leafs met was in 64 in the final.
That's true.
Yeah, so I mean,
that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it's tough to keep a rivalry going, even though they're in the same division. Even though, geographically, the only team closer is Buffalo. Not playing each other twice in over 50 years does not make.
Yeah, you know what? Put Pittsburgh in there too.
I'll put Pittsburgh in here too. Okay, I was going to ask you if I should have more than 3.
Yeah, because they played back-to-back years against the finals. There's a real dislike of Sidney Crosby. So maybe that
Chicago, Colorado, Pittsburgh, right?
Since they've ended up Colorado not playing Colorado, and that sort of is diminished. Chicago still has some spark because they had some good playoff games with them, even when Chicago won a cup that one year. So you got to put them in there, but there's so many Toronto fans in Windsor. It's a case of there's as many Toronto fans as Detroit fans when they play.
Well, I always felt this. I think it was my dad who said this years ago. He said, you know how good a team is by how many other cities consider that team their number one rival.
Yeah.
With the Red Wings, I think the Predators still look at the Red Wings as their rival. I think Columbus looks at the Red Wings as their rival. I gave the St. Louis, Minnesota. There's definitely
the Norris division there.
Yeah, the old Norris division. They would all look to Detroit, in a lot of cases, or Detroit and or Chicago, I guess.
Yeah,
I would still say, even despite falling on hard times in the last couple of 3 seasons, the Red Wings are still one of the best road draws. Go. They fill it up because a lot of people have moved away. I mean, there was such a mass exodus of Michigan during the recession, and a lot of people relocated. And
that's why there are a lot of Bills fans all over the Southeast and Southwest, because half of Buffalo moved out of Buffalo.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's what happened in Detroit too.
All right, so I'm going to give you my top 12 forward, and then you guys are going to. I'm starting off with just my 12, and then we can debate them from there. Actually, let's start with goalies. We'll go goalies, defense, forwards. Easier that way.
Okay. Let me just ask Kevin this, because I think one we know for sure.
Well, yeah.
The number 2 is the one that
Let me throw this out too before we start any further. I've had this discussion many times with Kevin over the years, and when you do a greatest of, best of, whatever list, you have to. The parameters are everything. Right. So let's talk. These are the parameters, and these are the sole parameters. You are a GM, and for some reason, time travel is available to you. And you're able, and players are coming in. These players are coming in at the best they were for your team, for your specific team. So remember that only, it's not like, Wayne Gretzky or whatever coming into your team. The best they were ever for your specific team. They had to have played at least 100 games in the uniform, which means they could have played the playoffs and a regular season maybe for 1 year, but it's probably more likely to play more than just one season. They weren't just a trade deadline pickup. So more than 100 games. It's not a longevity test. It's purely talent. You can sit there and say, yeah, he's one of the greatest Red Wings of all time. He played 1,200 games with the Red Wings. These guys are at your training camp, time travel. You're putting the guy out there for this one series. Okay. And forward positions don't matter. this is an all-star game, and you really, and if you've got these guys coming in, Malkin's coming in, like we talked about before, Malkin or Phil Kessel's coming in, you're going to keep Malkin and put him on the wing and not have Phil Kessel be on your team. So that kind of thing. So those are the 4 parameters. So now starting with that, the goalies, I think the obvious first one is Terry Salchuk, right? He's
obvious.
He's your starter. Who is your backup? I mean, I have Chris Osgood. That's who I put. But
yeah, no, I believe it's
Hasek,
Hasek.
okay.
Yeah, I would think Hasek too.
Just for the rules that you laid out.
Yep.
You look at his winning percentage in the 3 years that he was there. He won a cup. Like, he was such a dominant performer. And Osgood obviously contributed to cups. He certainly has longevity. But, in terms of pure talent, like even Ozzy would say, Hasek has.
See that you're looking at it the right way. That's the way I want to look at it, because that's
just to play devil's advocate here.
Yep.
Because I looked it up. Glenn Hall had a higher winning percentage than Hasek.
Yeah, I considered Glenn, but he wasn't at his. He was good and he was very.
His prime was as a Blackhawk.
But Hasek was more dominant, I guess.
Okay, that's fair.
And that's the other thing I didn't really say on there, Rich, is you're looking at how dominant they were in their period. I mean, obviously, Hasek's and Osgood are probably better goalies than Salchuk. But you have to look at their period within their peers where they were.
And don't take this the wrong way, because obviously he's one of the best goaltenders of all time. But Hasek was going down in his career when he was with Detroit. His numbers, his performance in Buffalo was so much better. He was going downhill. He wasn't over the hill. He wasn't a bad goaltender. He just wasn't as dominant as he was with Buffalo than he was in Detroit. But the team was a lot better, and he won.
Right, he didn't have to be.
But
I agree with you that he wasn't as good as he was. But in 3 seasons, he was 214. The goals against average. He was 114, 39, and 20. And during the Stanley Cup run, he had a 1.86 goals against average.
Yeah, not too shabby.
I mean,
and they, sure, that was a great team, but still 1.86 is a lot more about Hasek than the team.
Yes, no questions about it. That's good. All right, perfect. So let's move on to defense, which immediately gets harder.
I don't think so. Well, let's see what you got, and then we'll go.
All right, so these are my 6 defensemen. Kelly, Lidstrom,
yes,
Chelios, Coffey, Reed Larson, and Pronovo.
Yeah, you're leaving off Hall of Famer Larry Murphy and Hall of Famer Bill Gadsby.
Right.
Reed Larson, though, was a very, very, very popular player and a great, tremendous shot.
Yeah.
He wasn't as good defensively, not even really close.
Okay.
As Bill Gadsby, and of course Larry Murphy was better than him offensively. And there are a lot of people who, talk about the importance of Murphy coming in and the back-to-back cups. That he kind of stabilized the defense. He was a great compliment for Lidstrom,
especially Leaf fans who saw how badly he played in Toronto and then how well he played in Detroit.
Yeah.
What about Nicholas Kronwall?
Yeah, I mean, Kronwall is in the conversation, but I don't think he was ever. The problem is there's just too many Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like those 6 players that you mentioned are all elite level. Players, all top pairing guys, and it's just hard to eliminate any of those out. I mean, they've had some really good defensemen, but they've had tremendous great ones as well. So those are the 6 I would.
Who are the definites on here? Kelly, Lidstrom, right? Both of those guys. And then
Chelios and Coffey for sure.
Coffey. Okay, so those are the top. Those are your 4. We have. I mean, Chelios, Coffey. That people don't realize like what he did. I mean, the reason I went with Larson is not only did he was a popular player, like you said. He's also number 3 all-time points per game for Red Wings defenseman.
But he was the best defenseman on a really bad Red Wings team in the 70s,
which is even more impressive, isn't it? I mean, 0.8 points per game in 700 games.
But in that era, there was more scoring, and it's sort of like in the NBA team when even on a losing team, it has to be the best player.
I would like to mention that I just dug this story up on Bill Gadsby because I had chatted with him once. I thought he was a terrific guy. I didn't know about this story. In an open ice hit, he broke Tim Horton's jaw. He broke his leg. with one clean open ice hit.
Thought he
And-
killed him. I wrote.
And they thought he was dead. He had blood coming out of his ear, and Conn Smythe chased Bill Gadsby down the hallway.
Jeez.
Yeah, I wrote Gadsby's book with him, and he had a very emotional. He talked about that, and he told me he thought he killed him.
Ugh.
Yeah.
He got up and he looked down, and there was blood coming out, and he thought.
So who is that top? He should be on the list. That's my point.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now tell me more about Gadsby as a player. Like, you know, his point as a
Well, he was he was just a dominant two-way player. And,
two-way defenseman. Okay, so scored.
he came over in the trade. He was Gordie Howe's best friend throughout his life. Even when they were on other teams, they got to know each other. And then when he came to Detroit, they just made him better. You know, Bill Gadsby said if he wasn't playing 40 minutes a night, he felt something was wrong. You know,
I got you. Wow. All right, so good passer, good shooter.
Yeah. I mean, he was an offensive defenseman before it was fashionable, and the famous Bobby Bond shot went off the knob of his stick.
Yep.
Okay.
He was in the final in that game as well, and I don't know. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I should remember because I did his book, but I think he views himself as a Red Wing more than a Ranger. But
I think he does.
Yeah. So
he didn't make our Rangers team. But so our sixth defenseman then, I have Pronovost.
Well, I mean, I have no argument with that. I mean, Pronovost was a terrific, defenseman. And I understand even the Larson argument as well. I mean, he was a dominant player, 20 goals scorer from the defense, and just an ugly, wicked shot.
Yes.
By that, he really had. It was hard to know where that shot was going, so it was scary.
But if you want to factor in that he's a minus 139 in his career with the Red Wings, and that's a product of the fact that the Red Wings teams weren't good.
Right.
Yeah,
he was tough. He was willing. One of the great memorable fights in Detroit was Reed Larson versus Schultz in Pittsburgh. He fought Schultz. He was a guy like again, Pronovost was a terrific defenseman. I have no problem with Larson on that. Yeah. I just would take Gadsby and Murphy.
I would go with Larson over a guy like Kronwall, but I mean, did Rafalski play enough games and have enough of an impact, or Konstantinov?
I'm going to Konstantinov is the one I want to bring up because all time the number one plus minus guy for the Red Wings defense is Nicholas Strom at 450. 450. The next one is plus 185. That tells you how much better Lidstrom is than anyone else defensively. That's nuts. That's like more than twice. And that would be Vladdy Konstantinov.
Yeah, and the Konstantinov might have won a Norris. I mean, he was an elite level player as well. And again, I just think it's a product of there's just too many top players. Like, it's not an indictment on, it wasn't like he didn't do enough. There were just other guys I thought that did more.
All right.
I do want to mention, because Kevin asked the question, I double checked it. We had Gadsby 63rd in 100 Ranger great. So that should pretty much tell you we thought he was better as a Red Wing, even though he's a great Ranger.
Right.
All right, Michael, read off the 12.
Right, who's our 12th? Who's our sixth defenseman? We got to decide. We got Konstantinov. We got Pronovost. We got we got Larry Murphy. Well, Larry Murphy's not on here yet.
Yeah, you got to put Murphy
on there.
I mean, I guess if with fans, Gadsby, he was done in the 60s.
Right.
Well, we got Gadsby on here. He's one of the five for sure.
No, he's got to play there though. He's got to be there.
Yeah, Gadsby's on here.
Well, then you're gonna have to, if you want to put anybody else on, you got to take Murphy out. So
it's Murphy, Konstantinov, or
like if you wanted to put Konstantinov over Murphy, I mean, because Konstantinov, did a little more. Murphy came at the end of his career. I think he was a real valuable contributor.
Sure,
Murphy was, and I don't. But if you wanted to put Konstantinov, that
no one's going to have problems with that.
I can't.
I think that's what I'm going to go with, because it's obviously the story is, his numbers are pretty significant. Obviously the horrible stuff that happened.
I mean, I don't want to fool with your criteria because it's already well established, but I think having a category for intangibles, makes some sense. I mean, Konstantinov's popularity.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely think. I mean, that's not part of the criteria. Definitely, it is part of your thinking when you're doing it. You come down to 2 players you're looking at.
Right.
Murphy played with other teams. Obviously, if Murphy's far and away, like Coffey, he just has to be there. He's over a point a game for the Red Wings. I mean,
what about the forwards then?
All right, forwards. Good list here. This is a fun list, and I got one that's going to surprise you. My 12th is going to surprise you, and I'm not.
I'll raise my hand if I have a disagreement, but just.
All right. Abel, Lindsay, Fedorov, Larionov, Datsuk, Zetterberg. Then I have Shanahan, Ullman, and then my last one is Marcel Dion.
No way.
No
way.
All right.
Howe? Did you put Howe?
I have Howe in there. Yeah, sorry, Howe.
Iserman.
I left out Howe. How did I leave out Howe on my list?
Okay, Howe and Iserman. Alex Delvecchio.
Oh, I'm sorry, I left my first line out. Sorry, Hal. My first 3 were Hal, Eisman, and Delvecchio. Okay, so Hal.
They have to be there.
Was Zetterberg there?
Yes.
Yeah, he said Zetterberg.
Was Fedorov?
Yes. So you got
Datsuk. You got Datsuk.
Yeah. So think of this. You got the.
Did you have the entire production line? Lindsay.
Yeah. Right. Abel, Hal, and Delvecchio. Right.
No. Let Lindsay.
Right. Lindsay. Yeah, I got all those guys: Delvecchio, Iserman, Zetterberg, Fedorov, Larionov, and Datsuk. So those the 3 Russians, right?
I'm sorry. I would not put. I mean, don't get me wrong. Larionov was an incredible player, but if you're talking about just his Red Wing career, there are other players I think had.
I'll tell you one that I would have to see on the list is Holmstrom. It doesn't matter only.
Yeah, I've got Holmstrom on my list too, just as and production wise, and the other guy is Norm Allman.
Yeah.
Norm Allman scored 20 or more goals for 11 consecutive seasons.
Yeah, I saw him with the Leafs because he was part of the Mahavlich Paul Henderson deal, and even with the Leafs in the early 70s, he was still fantastic. Okay, how about the Reed Larson Award? How about John Ogrodnik?
I've got him on my list.
Ogrodnik was a hell of a player. Like I even got to see him with the Rangers for a short time. That guy could score, man, and he did score a lot of points, 500 something for the Red Wings. So
no, go ahead.
The other thing about Ogrodnik is I believe that he holds the NHL record for most goals scored per cigarette smoked per day.
No, Guy Lafleur got him beat.
I'm pretty sure because he was. I remember covering him, and he was. Guy Lafleur, of course, also was a big smoker, and Mario smoked too when he started.
I think all did too.
I just remember interviewing, waiting for Ogrodnik to smoke so we could interview him.
I get X point here with Dion because he had 366 career points in 309 games, but I always associate Dion's core years, his peak years with the Kings.
Oh, for sure. But remember what we're doing here. We all these guys are showing up for your camp. They're all there. I got to look at Marcel Dion. I got to think about it. Like he's amazing.
I guess what I'd bring up with him, even though I'm trying to be respectful of your criteria, it's kind of like, even though the NHL, they list people's nationalities by where they were born. Yeah. I remember the late Jim Johansson basically said to me that when one of the Sutter kin was drafted, I said, you guys aren't really in your list of number of Americans taken. You didn't count one of the Sutter kin, did you? Even though he was born
Brandon Sutter, yeah.
He goes, no, we would never do that. That would be totally disrespectful. So my argument on that is he's a king.
He's a king. No question. No, I do agree. He's a king. Coffey's an Oiler, though, too. To me, Coffey and Dion are pretty much equivalent.
Well, that's a fair argument. I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right. That's a fair argument. If I'm not counting Dion, maybe I shouldn't count Coffey, and I am counting Coffey.
Now, Kev, can you make a case for Steve Yzerman's longtime line mate Gerard Gallant?
No, I couldn't. I tried, but
Yeah.
I wanted to put Larry Onoff as one of my guys. I love Larry Onoff.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put him on, but I don't know. He was a great player, but the Red Wings have so many great players, and Larry Onoff didn't have those. He had a couple of great years, but he didn't have those staggering numbers that you don't want to see. But he probably deserves to be on there. Here's the problem you have. He's a much better player than John Ogrodnik. Not that John Ogrodnik was a bad player, but Larry Onoff's a Hall of Famer.
See, I think the Paul Coffey of forwards isn't Dion. It might be a guy like Dino Ciccarelli, because Ciccarelli had 240 points in 254 games. He won cups with them, but he's not. I associate Coffey with the Oilers or with the Penguins, not as much with the Wings. I associate Ciccarelli with the North Stars
for sure.
Well, but did Ciccarelli win cups with the Red Wings?
I thought he won one. Let me. I'll double check. I
don't remember him on those teams.
I thought one. I had to think about it.
I mean, it's interesting. Like the 13th leading scorer points per game for the Red Wings all time, who played 227 games, is Ron Duguay, which is pretty funny. And never would have thought that Duguay was that good with the Red Wings, but he was, obviously.
But again, he got a ton of playing time on a bad team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He might be.
Not to take away from Ron. Ron could play, but I just can't.
I'm pretty sure that the. Hold on, bring Kev back on here. I'm pretty sure that the Red Wings. It was 97-98. No, Ciccarelli was on. He was on Tampa Bay in 97 and 98.
Oh, okay.
He didn't. He was on that Red Wing team that lost to the Leafs in 93. And lost in the final to the Devils in 95.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. This is the as I look at my list here, like I was looking for a way to get Holmstrom on there, but how can I put Holmstrom on and not have Larry Onoff, who's a Hall of Fame player?
Yeah,
Larry Onoff played a long time in Detroit.
That's fair. I mean, I would never argue.
I associate him as. I mean, it's the NHL team. He's a Red Wing.
Yeah. No. I'm with.
I would just put Holmstrom over Dion. I just don't think. I know Dion was a 1.18 points per game, but I don't think at the end of the day, Dion would make this team, because I think they already have enough offensive talent. They need someone like Holmstrom. Somebody has to get in front of the net. All these guys are perimeter guys, except for Howe and maybe Holmstrom.
Well. Yeah. But I think X's argument, if I understand it correctly, in terms of his criteria, is that we're taking the sort of the Canada approach here, where we're just going to take the best hockey players, and because they have so much pride, they're going to fill the roles we give them. For sure.
And I mean, when you look at plus minus, Dion, talking against myself here, was a minus 50 in his career. Okay, that's the number that stands out for minus 50 for the Red Wings, right? That's a number that definitely stands out. Despite the fact that he is the number one points per game forward who's played over 100 games for the Red Wings, and he's played over 300 games for the Red Wings. So we're talking about that's some which is very, and Coffey's the number one points per game defenseman and over 300 games as well. So they are very similar in that way. It's interesting when you look at plus minus for the Red Wings. Their top two all time are Fedorov and Datsuk. Which is really like, so you look at,
two great two-way centers.
Yeah, they're two incredible centers.
Selke Trophy guys. And
Fedorov played defense at times too.
Yeah.
Another guy that's on here that we haven't talked about, who is number 7. So like you go through this is 1 through 7. Fedorov, Datsuk, Yzerman, Zetterberg. That's 1 through 4. Then Howe is the 5th best plus minus of all time. Then Shanahan, who we and then Victor, then Kozlov, then Sean Burr. So Victor Kozlov, the Vyacheslav
Slava Kozlov.
Kozlov. I can't speak. And Sean Burr, but then Larionov at number 9. So Larionov is,
that's why you can't use plus minus as a sole determining factor.
Although Kozlov was a hell of a player, he was.
No, I mean Kozlov was a much better player than
Kozlov was a very consistent goal scorer.
Yeah,
he was in the shadow of other players for sure.
And they traded him to get Hasek.
Right, exactly. But Sean Burr is another, one of the better defense. There's another guy who, and then number 12, Darren McCarty. How about that? For plus minus is a weird stat. I do agree with you, but it is interesting to look at.
Heck, Flyers fans love Darren McCarty.
Yeah. So
the best movie ever made in his NHL career came in, on that cup clinching goal against.
oh yeah, never forget it. So it's tough. I mean, so our 12 right now that we have that
I like that goal personally.
I'm getting this right. We have Delvecchio, Lindsay, Abel, and Zetterberg. We're all in agreement with those 6, right?
Yeah.
Fedorov, Datsuk, and Larionov.
No problem.
Okay, we agree with that. And now it's our we're looking for our last line. We have Redmond, we have Ullman, and we have Shanahan right now. I'm in on Ullman. I think Ullman is.
Ullman's definitely in, and so is Shanahan. I think Ogrodnik has got to be in.
So we're looking at the last guy, whether it's Redmond, Ogrodnik, Dion.
I still think I put Holmstrom. I really would.
Well, I've got Holmstrom on my list, but
Okay.
I mean,
Holmstrom played 1,000 games.
A bunch of those guys don't get the goals they got without Holmstrom.
what do you remember of Dion as a Red Wing, Kevin?
that he was a dominant player.
Yeah.
I mean there was a great excitement in Detroit when he was here. I mean, no doubt about it. Like, you thought he was going to be, one great player. It was, because free agency really didn't exist when he left and went to LA, and then the return ended up being Maloney, and because they had to negotiate it after he left. Maloney and Terry Harper. It just seemed like wow, people were just depressed over that.
Yeah, I could see that completely.
So
it's hard. Holmstrom is definitely one of those guys. Like I agree with you.
To break a tiebreaker, he played 1,000 games.
Yeah, no, he did. I mean, this is.
A lot of those guys
I'll give it to you. I'll give you Holmstrom Dion off my list. But I did think it's at least worth the discussion because of a guy like him. And it's funny when I look on here. So I'm looking on the Red Wings alumni for NHL 90, right? And they have Hal, Lidstrom, Salchuk. They have Hall, the goalie Hall, right? Like I say, what is on the Red Wings alumni here is always going to be confusing because this is the guys that agreed to do it,
right?
So somebody might not be on here because they didn't sign the thing to say okay, you can use my thing in the game. So I'll just create that. I'll have to create that from scratch.
Joey Koser's on there. That's what happened.
Heck, I'll give you a final determining stat.
They have Marcel Dion on here.
Holmstrom is 11th on the team all time in game-winning goals.
Yeah, that's a good stat. And that's kind of how you remember him too. He was such a clutch guy, right?
Johan Franzen's actually ahead of him.
Yeah. Wow, that's true.
I wasn't around. I wasn't around when Sid Howe played, but Sid Howe was a rather dominating player in the 30s and 40s. No, we didn't even mention him, so give him a mention.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see. We're gonna get out of here, but let's see what we have here for the Red Wings rival.
Well, why don't we say that till tomorrow?
Who voted on it? So I'm just gonna do that.
Yeah.
The vote out there to everybody, and we have had. Let's see. Okay, we have had. That's not right. More than 3 people have voted for sure. It's not refreshing yet. Sorry.
I hope.
Here we go. Yeah, we have 900 people voting. Coming in 4th, the Pittsburgh Penguins at 3%. Coming in 3rd, the Toronto Maple Leafs at 15%. And then coming in first, the Chicago Blackhawks at 53%, Colorado at 29%. So people are saying Chicago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the near rival, and that was the first response, just because. But all 4 of those teams, you can make some case.
Oh yeah, but in Detroit, Chicago just informs sports city rival in general too, right?
Yeah.
Like beyond just hockey. I mean,
that's right. I mean,
the football teams have great history in losing.
Yeah,
and Pistons and Bulls, going back. There's
Pistons and Bulls was good.
Yeah, all that. And
we have to remember all those great Thanksgiving Bears-Lions games there for us.
Yeah.
Well, when you think of old football, you think of the Bears and Lions. That's just the bottom line.
Steve Fuller versus Eric Hipple or
Eddie Payton. That's all you remember is Eddie Payton.
There's a really good show on the Animal Planet that actually takes animals. Have you ever done this before? I do this with my son. My son loves animals all the time. We say who would win, like a polar bear or a hippo in a fight? Who would win that?
Oh, we did that one.
Right. So with bears, there was one with a bear and a lion the other day. And who do you think they do? If you just simulate this with all the different things, they actually make mechanical devices with the same bite power and the same claw power, and then they fight.
The lion wins.
Get a life.
It was awesome. It was
I-
awesome. The bear just took the lion down. I mean, the bear.
No way.
No, the bear did because see, you got to remember, lions are not heavy animals.
A bear is a hairy pig.
Yes, but the
Bear
lion
weighs
would
like
be
5 times
hiding-
what a lion wears.
the lion would be hiding in the brush, waiting for the kill, and the bear cannot outrun the lion.
No.
Well, according to Google,
Okay.
a grizzly bear will always win a head-to-head fight with an African lion because grizzlies are so much bigger and stronger and
Oh
heavier.
yeah.
They have
I mean,
bigger paws with stronger, deadly swipes.
There you go.
The lion is smaller and agile.
I'll take them both on.
And cats are skitterish. Bears are not. That's the other thing. Like,
Okay.
like
The
you-
lion
Oh, wait a minute. It says here, though, that the lions are stronger and dangerous than all other bears other than the grizzly bear. So
yeah, well, to people for sure. But
All
bears. But but the thing about like a
the
bear.
lion can't even win at that. The lions.
And if you ever watch the Lewis and Clark documentaries, they would like they'd have to shoot a bear. They try to take a bear out like 5 times. Like a bear, you couldn't kill a bear. Like bears are just like ridiculous. They're just even with gunshots, you can take them out sometimes. Anyway,
What's going to win, a bear or Matthew Stafford? Wait till next week. We'll tell you that next week.
since we're on ridiculous comparisons,
yes.
on Tom Laidlaw and the Laidlaw and Allen report, we ended up discussing whether you would rather watch a Bugs Bunny cartoon or a Quick Draw McGraw.
Oof.
Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny.
It's
Yeah.
not even close for me.
Yeah, me either. I'm a Bugs Bunny, but for
He's a
Laidlaw,
Quick Draw guy?
Quick Draw McGraw for
I
Laidlaw.
got to talk to Tom because in the simulation that we had between the Islanders and Rangers, I did end up putting Tom on the team just for fun because I had to. Who's one of our 6 defensemen, and
I didn't say to do that.
I know you said I know I was going against your recommendation, Russ, but
That was unauthorized.
he's a friend of mine. I wanted to be on the team. He ends up giving
not a friend of mine. That's
or
on there.
he ends up giving the puck away to Brian Trottier in the first 10 minutes of the game, and Trottier goes in on a breakaway and scores. So yeah, that was
Herb would have looked pointed at you for that.
This was
You know what? I'm going to bring that up. We have a podcast tomorrow. I'm going to bring up that up.
Please do.
Well,
He will be irate. That
I know.
Save it for next week when we have him on the show with you, Kev, because then we'll see his ire.
Really weird decision on this. He tried to carry the puck too far into the zone, got stripped.
But again, why is Tom Laidlaw carrying the puck?
Well, just remember what Herb Brooks always said when Laidlaw got the puck. Remember, when Laidlaw has the puck, he told the Rangers, a mistake has happened on that. So, hey, we talked about people working out during this.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah, and he has figured out a way. He is sheltering in place as well, and his gym is closed. And, of course, he still gets up every morning, True Git lifestyle, 3:30 in the morning.
He's probably
And he does his forced march. He's in better shape now in his 60s, he says, than when he played in the NHL.
Yeah.
But he gets those, on your gas grill, the canisters of gas.
Yeah.
He's got 2 of those, and he lifts them up, and he works out with them. So
Lifting propane tanks.
He's insane, man.
I wouldn't be
that's
surprised if he tries to try out for the NHL next year. He seems like he's a man possessed right now. He's just going to make the most incredible comeback ever. It's
but don't you remember what happened to Carl Brewer?
yeah.
There you go. All right, guys. Thanks so much, Kevin, for joining us. People can follow Kevin at @ByKevinAllen on Twitter. And then, he also is a contributor all over NHL.com on Hockey Buzz. You'll see him everywhere. And then also, remember, if you can support the podcast, we'd really appreciate it. A couple of you did yesterday, and it really means a lot to me. So, and the guys here right now, we're all doing our best to entertain you guys during this crazy time. So go to patreon.com. That's patreon.com/hockey. And if you can give $10, 2 people gave $10 a month yesterday. I really appreciate it.
Nice.
That means the world to us. So just if we can get more of you guys doing it, if you get anything out of this, please show us in that way. That would be wonderful. Thank you guys. Remember, folks, without the buzz,